All right, everybody. Hello. Again, I really hope you're doing well on your extended break. And I told you guys on Google Classroom and in the emails, like, keep playing, keep practicing. And I kind of went over it before in class a little bit, but I realized practicing is one of those things that music teachers always tell students that you need to do, and musicians are always told that they just need to practice, and it's one of those things that like isn't really taught, and you're kind of left being like, well, how do I practice? And so some people's version of practicing is just playing through something over and over again until they either get sick of it or they can do it perfectly, or they get bored, right? But there's kind of many different ways to practice, and so I kind of wanted to share with you kind of how I practice. Now, I'm not going to just video record an entire practice session of mine because that just would be kind of boring, and a really long video. But I just kind of wanted to first go over my philosophy about practicing. So, one of my former bass teachers kind of taught me this idea that it's not really about the quantity of practice, but more so the quality of practice. And what he meant by that was, especially as a college music major, usually you're expected to practice between 2 and 4 hours every day, which is a lot. But what his point was is that you could spend 4 hours locked in a practice room and not really get that much done. But you could also spend like 30 minutes in a practice room and get a lot done. And it's really just about how you go about it. Now, I'm not saying, oh, you don't need to practice more than 30 minutes, because, it's really helpful to practice, as much as you can. But at the same time, if you're just if you're just like, I'm going to sit down and practice, but I have to pound out 4 hours of practice time, well, then, it might not be the most productive practice time, especially if you view it from the lens of, I have to practice this. I know for me, I like to take frequent breaks, and that's totally fine. When I was in college, sometimes when I had a lot of practicing to do and I locked myself in my practice room, I would start to go a little crazy in this like maybe 10 foot by 10 foot room, maybe not even that. And I would start to get crazy after like 20 to 30 minutes. And so what I'd do is I'd just set my bass down and I'd go out and just walk around the music school, get a drink, talk to some friends, whatever. And then I would come back. And usually it kind of helped my brain reset. And so I could kind of come back in, refocus, or move on to the next thing and not feel as burnt out. So I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Just take frequent breaks. Maybe just, chunk it out. Do 20-minute chunks. Practice for 20 minutes. And then once those 20 minutes are up, then go, take a break, get a snack, watch some cute cat videos on YouTube, whatever, and then come back after like, maybe 10 minutes or so, and then, practice some more. The other thing about practicing is you can totally segment it just by what you're practicing. So in my practice sessions, I usually start with a kind of warm-up that really loosens up my hands and just my muscles and everything to help me get kind of reacquainted with the instrument. Now, usually if I'm feeling like really tense or haven't played for a while, or, my arms are really tired or whatever, I like to stretch a little bit. And so you've seen me do those stretches before in class where, we do these things, these things, right? Just stretching out the hands like this. We've done those before plenty of times, and that's totally cool. And then what I like to do is I like to do a nice little exercise to loosen my fingers up and my arms up and just make sure that I'm really relaxed when I play, because in order to really get the best sound and be able to play your best, I believe it really comes from relaxation and playing super relaxed. And of course, my top priority when I play an instrument, and it's kind of universal for a lot of musicians, is to sound good always. So making sure that you're always making a good sound as a first priority is going to help you be really successful. So what I first do to loosen up, I just start with some open strings and just really focus on getting a nice, good sound. And what I'm also also thinking about as I do this, is my bowing arm nice and relaxed? Is my bow straight? Am I making smooth bow changes? And I'll move to another string. And another string. And another string. And so on. Just really practicing on getting a nice big sound and nice clear smooth sound right off the bat is really important, I feel like. Next up, to get my fingers loosened up, I like to do what I call the vomit exercise. Some of you have done this in class, and it's a really good exercise for shifting as well, but I use it to loosen up. And what it is basically you use one finger, and I'll just use first finger for now, and you place it on your string. For now, I'm doing on the G string, and so I would encourage you to do it as well. And so you'll put your first finger on A, and then what you'll do is you'll actually slide between notes. So for now, right now, I'm going from A to B. And basically the idea is that you slide between them and be as relaxed and accurate as possible, making sure you're really in tune. This is where a good tuner will really come in handy. And I can show you a tuner in just a moment. And so practicing with a tuner, you really make sure that your A to B is super in tune. And the idea also about your fingers moving is you don't want your thumb to be kind of clamping on the neck. If you're a violin or a viola, you don't want to be clamping on the side of the neck. And if you're a cello bass, you don't want to be clamping on the back. You almost want to feel like you're really only pressing down with your finger into the fingerboard, and then you're sliding down with your arm. And that's a really good way to make it go. So back to vomit. And I go to A to C sharp. Then A to D. A to E. A to F sharp. A to G sharp. Oops. There we go. And then A to A. Another thing to keep in mind when you're doing that, and one thing that I might not have been doing a very good job of because I kind of wasn't paying attention to it, make sure you pay attention to it, is make sure that your wrist stays in alignment or stays straight. So for cellos and basses, make sure that you're not, letting your elbow fall down, and especially if you start to get into the higher positions, if you're ready for that, make sure that you're not cocking your wrist at a weird angle, and make sure it's nice and straight. And then also make sure you stay on your fingertips, and that's for everyone. All right, after I've done that, I usually like to do some scales, because scales are good for you. Music is just scales, really. It's just sometimes you skip notes, and sometimes the notes are in all sorts of crazy orders. But really, you just use scales in music. Life hacks. So, anyway, I like to practice scales, and I like to do them in so many different ways, and you can totally do them in different ways as well. I'm just going to go ahead and set my metronome to 60, and a metronome is another really good thing to have when you're practicing. Metronome and Tuner, solid. And I can go ahead and show you the app that I use, and it's called Pro Metronome, and there's a free version. It's really great. And if you want to pay the extra money to get the extra features like subdivisions and fun stuff like that, you totally can. It's like $6. But it's a really useful tool for practicing. So what I like to do when I practice scales is just put my metronome on 60 beats per minute. And then I usually just do quarter notes on my scales. You can also do half notes, you can do eighth notes, you can do whole notes. It's up to you. I usually just do quarter notes because I'm pretty comfortable with my scales. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start out with a C major scale. Now I like to do 3-octave scales since that's what I've been trained to do from college. But you can do this with 1-octave scales, you can do it with 2-octave scales, you can do it however you want. And what I do is I just play my scales along with the metronome. See, I even messed up a little bit. My rosin got stuck, so I'm going to try that one more time. That's a really important thing about practicing, is don't just move on if you make a mistake. You should try and kind of fix it, okay? There are times when you just move on, but in practice, you do want to kind of go back over it and fix your mistakes. So I'm going to fix my mistake. And you heard that little squeal at the top there. It's because my fingerboard actually doesn't go high enough for me to hit that C, and so I kind of have to go off of the fingerboard, and sometimes it's not very reliable. And sometimes I kind of have to fake it a little bit, so that's why that squeals. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen C major, but hey, I'm showing you guys, and I'm human. I make mistakes too. So you can do scales in all sorts of different keys. Sometimes I like to do what's called the circle of fifths, and that's something that I can show you guys in a future video. But basically, you can relate all keys in fifths, and so like if I was in C, then I would go a fifth up to the next key, which would be G. So I do the G major scale, then I could go up another fifth from there and do the D major scale, and so on. Just go around, and it just makes a circle. And I can post an image of what the circle of fifths looks like for you guys. And then, so after I do my scales, sometimes I'll include some articulation exercises just to make sure I'm really solid on like staccatos especially, and I can do that in a future video. But another thing that I do, usually if I'm trying to keep my practice sessions kind of short because I'm limited on time, or I just have a lot of pressure to learn my music, I get right to the music. So I'm going to go ahead and work on a tune that I learned back in college, but it's been quite a few years since I've played it, and it isn't the most easy piece, and I kind of wanted to relearn it again. I looked through my solos that I kept, and I was just like, oh, yeah, I think this would be fun to learn again. It's called Valse Miniature, and it's written especially for bass, and I haven't really played this much. I think it's been a good like 4 or 5 years since I've played it. And so I'm going to try and relearn it again. What I like to do first is just do a lot of listening. And so I do a lot of listening by listening to a lot of recordings on YouTube and just try and get an idea of the piece and follow along with my music. And then I kind of try to sing it to myself if I can. And then I try and play through it. Since I've already kind of learned, since I've learned this piece in the past and I already know what it's supposed to sound like, I'm going to dive right in. But disclaimer, it might be a little bit rough because I haven't played it in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and play it nice and slow as well. I'm not going to play it at performance tempo because I want to try to be a little bit more successful. So here we go. Alright, so that was the first time I played it in quite a while, and it was definitely rough. You probably noticed there were some moments where I struggled a little bit, and so I'm going to kind of show you the process that I go through to fix some mistakes or just really practice some stuff without just playing it over and over again from the beginning. That's a really important thing about practicing. Is a really bad habit that some people do is as soon as they make a mistake, they just start from the beginning again, or they'll get stuck and then they'll just play the same thing over and over again. But really, the whole point of practicing is to get better, and so you want to focus on the parts that you struggled with and then really hone in on those spots, practice it slowly, break it down like I will in just a moment, get that better, then start adding on the rest of the stuff that you can already play. So, for instance, with this one, I feel pretty confident in my ability to play the first 4-ish measures, the ones that sound something like this. Maybe not as confident. So, I feel pretty decent about that. I can still work on it a little bit. But this next measure is the ugliest measure. The next two measures, really, are the ugliest two measures of the piece, for me at least. And I struggled with them in college, and I'm struggling with them right now. So I'm going to break it down. What it is it's just a bunch of eighth notes that are slurred, and it has a lot of shifts in it for bass. That's what makes it tricky. So I'm just going to go ahead and break it down. So I'm going to go nice and slow. And just do slurring twos rather than slur it all on one bow like it's written. And go super slow and just make sure I get every single note. The E wasn't quite in tune, so I'm going to do it again. There it is, now it's in tune. Awesome, now I'm going to try and do it in one bow, but still really slow. My shift wasn't good, I'm going to try that again. Alright, cool, I started to run out of bow, but maybe if I play it faster I won't run out of bow. Alright, not too bad. Good, now let's do the next one. That one's not too bad. It's a little out of tune though. So let's make sure it's nice and in tune. There we go, now let's try it again. But it's on an up bow, so I should probably play an up bow. Oh, that was gross. That was also gross. There's my harmonic. I was missing it, so it's always a good idea to, if you keep missing a note, just really hone in on that note and figure out where it is. There we go. Now I'm going to try both of those measures together, a little bit slow. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Alright, so still pretty ugly, but at least I'm getting it to sound a little bit better. Now let's put it together with what I know. See, it's a little bit better. I mean, it's still not perfect, and I still have a lot of practicing to do, but just in there, I showed you kind of how I go through those things when I do it, and just really hone in on those. And if you have any questions about, why did I do the things that I did during that, or if you have a specific example in something you're working on where you always get stuck, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll give you some tips for that. So, anyway, that's usually how I practice. I hope some of that stuff could be helpful for you. And remember, music is meant to be enjoyed. So if you're not enjoying it, then you need to figure out a way to make it enjoyable. So whether it be learn a new piece that you really wanted to be listening, or that you really wanted to be playing. Maybe you've listened to it a bunch and you've been like, that's really pretty, I want to learn that. Or, oh man, it would be really cool if I could learn how to play it. Whether it's a pop song or whatever. Just do that. Find ways to keep it interesting. For me, revisiting old friends, as cheesy as it sounds, revisiting old pieces that I've played before that I really liked, it's kind of fun for me because it brings back memories, and And then I kind of remembered my struggles in the past and like how far I've come from that, or just various things. So I hope that this video has been helpful. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by emailing me or posting on Google Classroom. And I look forward to posting more videos for you guys to enjoy. And again, if you have a recommendation or a request for a video for me to do, let me know and I'll try my best to do it. So stay safe out there and have a great time.